Hey everyone, happy to see you. Liz Miller, Constellation Research. I'm joined here by my two colleagues. What's happening? We are here at Zoho Day, which is an amazing opportunity for analysts to really get up close and personal with Zoho, and not just Zoho products or Zoho marketing materials or our website. This gives us access to Zoho executives and leaders and customers who are really driving this forward. So, Martin, what's your big takeaway from this year?
I think the big takeaway is platform. You know, everybody, I think the perception has been Zoho has a lot of apps. They've got apps for this, they've got apps for that. I think they've been really doing the work for a while, but now we're starting to see the fruits of the labor of developing an overarching, unifying and underlying platform to not just tie the apps together, but to tie workflow, data and integration to really power and make the AI strategy real. So really making, it's part of the upmarket move that they've been doing and getting more and more successful with. But really, I think platform is the one word I would take away from, and really that investment starting to pay off.
Yeah, awesome. Chirag, what have you seen?
I think the biggest takeaway for me that Zoho is enterprise ready. I actually never thought what it would take for someone to be enterprise ready, but based on the customer conversations we had, to looking at their global expansion in terms of data centers, to presence everywhere, to some of the regions that are like really growing at really kind of rapid speed, to investment in platform,
systems integrator relationships, everything,
and marketplace, and key partnerships with some of the GSIs and some of the SIs. They are there when they are trying to get into the enterprise market, the enterprise and upper enterprise market. They are there. That was the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, it's funny. I think the takeaway for me probably comes from a slightly different vantage point, because I keep thinking back to a Zoho Day 6 years ago, 5 years ago, like 2020, and hearing them talk about their hardware architecture and hearing them talk about kind of deep infrastructure layer. This is how we're building out. This is what our data center strategy is going to be. This is why we have it, because privacy and security sit at the center of everything that we do. And to hear that grow year over year, I think it's not that this is, and to your point, this isn't a new platform conversation. We've been talking about platform at Zoho for years now, but we've been talking about it from the infrastructure perspective.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it from here's the foundation, because our foundation is inherently built around a very different corporate strategy.
Yep.
And I think we're seeing that now come to life in a way that enterprises fully understand, because now that we're in this age of AI, moving from a POC into production, we have to think about where privacy and security truly sit for us. And that matters, because great, you're on public cloud. Where's your data? So there are a lot of big questions. So I think that your comment about enterprise ready and your comment about platform, the big takeaway that I have is that they've actually been ready to deliver both of those things for a while, but because of things like AI, because of data, because of globalization, the world is ready and the enterprise is now ready to take a chance on if Zoho is right for their enterprise. So I think the big takeaway for me is how much the market is shifting towards Zoho's long-standing culture. So I think that's kind of been a very interesting shift for me. Chirag, I'm going to ask you first. Anything that surprised you?
One thing surprised me. They still have a co-pilot. As we look at other software companies, the agentic AI or the agents and whatnot, they've been pitching as a replacement for co-pilots. Like, hey, co-pilots were so 2022 or so 2023 or so 2024. But in case of Zoho, the Ask Zia, the actual co-pilot where you can, and they have actually made it quite useful. So so the agentic AI, it's an evolution, but it's not a replacement for co-pilots. And co-pilots, they exist. They are doing an amazing job. They are actually investing in them. They are more contextual. They give you insights where you need the insights. They are deeply integrated with data and systems. And yes, agents will evolve. You'll build new agents and systems might become more autonomous, but they're taking customers from what they are used to, but their investment in Ask Zia and in all these co-pilots. to the next stage, which is agents. I thought that was surprising.
What about you?
What a nice surprise, though.
Yeah, I think added to that, there's an interesting streamlining of 60, 70, 80, however many applications they have now, into these domain-specific concepts, which is kind of part of their enterprise play, which can power a more solution mindset rather than small businesses and mid-sized businesses looking for apps.
Yeah.
So going into like CX and collaboration rather than just like a project tool and a sales tool, and so seeing these 5 or 6, whatever they are, these actual like domain kind of these models come out where it becomes, solution modeling that gets enabled by Zoho One, right? Where you can kind of pick and choose what you want. Where before they were in the weeds of, well, what's your use case? How many people are here? And it'll actually create less friction and more imagination, so to speak, and strategic thinking in enterprise customers, and really unlocking and enabling potential in good ways when people just start thinking of these 5 or 6 areas instead of having to think of 80 applications or whatever it is. So I think that was a really good move.
I think the big surprise for me, and it shouldn't have been a surprise. I'm gonna admit that out loud. I'm just gonna admit that I'm sorry, Zoho, that this did surprise me. This should not have surprised me about Zoho as a company, because it's these things they've been setting up for years and years. But I was pleasantly surprised by the documentable and measurable growth that Zoho is experiencing in key global markets, like Latin America, like the Middle East. These are regions that are fast growing. A lot of them do not have the bad habits that North America has.
Yep.
They grew up in isolation.
Yeah.
They aren't playing corporate don't touch
the
my
mistakes,
bad. Right, like they do not have the data fiefdoms that we've grown up with in North America and that we use as convenient excuses for why we can't advance some of these technologies. These are markets, though, that have very different needs. They are mobile centric. They are not web centric. These are regions where, hey, that wire just got pulled up to the shore like 5 years ago. So there is not a laptop in every home.
Yep.
So I'm really pleasantly surprised to see that a lot of the application development and a lot of the kind of delivery of all of the Zoho tools have really mapped that growth and that expansion. So you're starting to see some really mobile forward pro code, low code, no code. You're starting to see these applications really become available for a market that is just going to do amazing things with them, because again, no bad habits, no roadblocks and preconceived ideas of what they need to do. I think it's going to be really exciting to see what customers out of Brazil, out of LATAM, Mexico, out of the Middle East, out of South Africa, I think it's going to be really exciting to see what they're able to do on Zoho, as opposed to what I think the rest of the world is trying to do, which is figure out what to do with Zoho. And I think it's a very different posture.
Yeah, I think Canvas is a really cool enabling, because the more they integrate that with what we call apps, really cool. Because I first looked at it as it's a content tool for marketers. No, it's a UX tool for
Zoho.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's really cool.
And I think it's always been, I think that one of the challenges Zoho often faces is it wants to name things in a naming convention that makes sense to a really massive organization of engineers. And God love them. God love engineers. We love you. But the naming part, you got to leave that to the marketers. I'm just saying, please, please, please. Okay, so if we start to look at the year ahead, what do you start to see from everything that we've seen over the past 2 days? What do you think is the big thing? Like, what are you looking for in 2025 for Zoho?
I'm looking for them to start telling an enterprise story outside in ways that they're not now.
Oh, interesting.
You see their ads everywhere. If you're in a subway station or you're here,
and it's the takeovers, right?
And it's great, but it still becomes this very it's still very kind of product-y, and it's still kind of this thing where you've got some great customer stories, some great marquee global customers and brands that are leveraging you in really cool ways. Tell those stories outside of the cabal of analysts who know and who can recommend that. But go big and go broad with that. Get away from too product weedsy into we unlock enterprise potential in really cool ways. I think there's a huge opportunity there. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got multi-million seat deployments across multiple, and this is just outside of CX too. Just go broad with it and just tell those great stories. They've got so many great enterprise products, that are enterprise customers using their products in really cool ways. Tell those stories.
Yeah, I think Chirag said it really well. Enterprise ready. Yeah,
That's like the world needs to hear them. Yeah.
Right, but I think you said it really well. Right, is that I think there's an enterprise story, but then I think there's an enterprise ready story that is that what you're going to be looking for? Or are you going to be looking for something different?
I think verticals.
Interesting.
The verticals. If you go back and look at Oracles and SAPs of the world, the reason they became so wildly successful because they actually had a vertical approach. Because you sell in a vertical, because they have a very specific needs. Yes, it's a horizontal solution,
right,
which is verticalized for a specific industry. And now Zoho finally is actually doubling down.
I'm going to pick on that just a little bit, though. I'm going to pick on the thread just for a second, Chirag, because I think I agree with you. I think the vertical conversation with Zoho is super interesting, but not because of a sales approach. And I think that's what makes it so interesting for me, because I think you're right. I think when you look at an IBM, an SAP, when you look at the big guys, right? They did such a great job of being able to say, here are the solutions that you need. Here's like the Happy Meal. Here is your vertical Happy Meal for healthcare. And here's the data, here's your schema, and then by the way, here's your marketplace that comes along with it, right? So it kind of came in a really nice package called vertical. But that's a sales approach, right? And I think what's interesting, and I'd love to pick your brain about this because you're our product expert, right? But for Zoho, it seems like what they're doing is looking at this from a product perspective first, so that they have a truly focused product set that is native to, that natively integrates, has the marketplace that supports it, has the SIs that are able to come in and implement it, so that their vertical approach is actually starting not from a sales perspective, but from a product perspective.
Which is true. And I think if you look at example of dealer management system.
Oh, that's a good example.
Such an interesting niche, but there are so many dealers out there. They just have lousy solutions. I mean, you could use a traditional CRM solution, would not actually do any justice if you're a car dealer, or any auto dealer.
Yeah.
But they have taken that and they are co-creating that with a set of customers in regions, some of the fastest growing regions. And they have this test bed in India where they have existing customers, developers, and partners who are actually willing to go in, willing to invest, because Zoho has, it's sort of a great way of working with partners. And you are never going to cover all industries unless you actually go work with partners. It's just impossible to
or unless you're deeply in the industry, right? And I think
you're not going to have the domain, you're not going to have know-how. So that's the approach. That's how they are starting. But then the sales approach is what I would look forward to. That's not something that exists now.
So that's what you're going to be looking for in 25.
Or can you replicate the product success that you have as a successful go-to-market motion?
I was just going to say go-to-market motion is critical.
That requires telling great stories.
Exactly.
That requires a sort of scalable marketing that actually works across different regions.
But they have so many ways to go in without having to be the package, like you said, the solution, to go in and say, look, we've got the collaboration angle here now, where it actually comes in with project planning and doing all these other things, bringing a control workflow and BPA, where it doesn't matter. They're working better, I think, than ever with third-party, upmarket tools and integration points to actually come in and say, let's verticalize around what is your workflow that we need to help you fix? Where are your gaps in the journeys? And then if you want to pop in the CRM later, great.
Right.
If you want to, and you may never change the financials because you don't really need to, right? Because that becomes a static transactional engine. But the thing that's transformative is the things around experience, right? And the things that are around the usability and where Canvas can change that for any, however I interact with the data, however I'm interacting with people. So I think it's really, the components there, it can be whatever they want. So they need to take a creative approach to that vertical, effort, but I think, that's the cool thing is they can do it both ways. They can package it up with a GSI, or they can have EBS go with their best account managers and go in and expand on anything that's already in there.
I think the challenge to that though is, and I always think of this when I think of Zoho, which is there is a statement that if you spend enough time around this organization, you hear it, and they don't mean it as a cute, trite statement they've painted on a wall someplace, because trust me, this is painted nowhere in their headquarters. But they talk about the Zoho way, and they mean it. Like, they really, really mean it. And part of the Zoho way is we don't have to think of go-to-market like everybody else. We don't have to think about product like everybody else. We don't ever have to call any of our things applications. There's tools. They're tools. Anyone can go create a tool, right? They have a way that is ingrained in their culture as an organization, and it makes it very confusing for a room full of people like us, because we want them to do something. We want them to behave a certain way. We want them to do a certain thing so they get their market valuation to a certain place, and it's really confusing. And they don't care, because what they care about is Zoho. And it's a very, very different posture, and it's a very different way of being. Okay, last question I have for you guys is this. If we were sitting here with an enterprise customer, pick your vertical, pick your size, shape, pick your region, right? And because we are Constellation, we get to sit in a really fun spot, in that we have this really massive, Constellation executive network. So we're sitting in front of one of our BT 150, one of our CEN members, and they say to us, "Hey, what's surprising out there? What could I be looking at that maybe I didn't look about?" How would you talk to that executive about Zoho after experiencing these last 2 days?
I think what's interesting is when Chandra's talking about what would he call it, like exponential developer productivity, or whatever, massive programming productivity.
So he said suck. Okay, just as a note, I'm not randomly cursing. He said it. Sridhar Vembu said suck less, so that's not my fault. You were witnesses to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
But I think it aligns with our Constellation concept of exponential value creation and looking for those opportunities.
I like that.
And I think when you look at where the platform and the domain-led solutions that they're doing, and merging these things together, unifying a lot, simplifying a lot, it allows people to, without a lot of disruption and without a lot of intrusion to what they're already doing, to modernize and transform at a transformation cost and then total cost of ownership that is exponentially less than with what they're doing today and what they might choose to either stick the course with or move down the road.
Yeah,
so I think that's what's really exciting right now.
I love it. I love it. Chirag, what's your advice to one of our Constellation Executive Network members?
I would ask them, what do other vendors do? They build 2 applications or 2 tools, then they go acquire 3 different companies.
Right.
And then they retool them. Maybe.
Possibly.
In the cloud.
Right? And then they are seamlessly integrated.
With 10 other things, right?
Things don't work. Right?
Yeah.
So that is the opposite of that. That is the Zoho way. Which is
interesting.
Which is we are interested in solving problems. We are interested in solving customers' problems. We are not interested in necessarily making money. So we don't go out and say, let's find out all the places where we can make money, and then go build all products. So that's not the Zoho way. The Zoho way is, let's find all the interesting problems that we can actually solve. And then we'll figure out how to actually make the money, because they are not really under pressure. From an organization perspective.
No, it's a beautiful freedom.
The whole private thing changes the dynamic, right?
Totally. And everyone used to think, why are they doing this themselves? It doesn't make any sense. It's so much more expensive. It's so much more
And to Chirag's point, it's because they don't have that pressure.
And it worked. Now everyone's getting it. Now everyone gets it in AI.
From a CXO perspective, it's like, do you not want to solve your problems today? Do you actually not want to have someone who will continue to listen to you on your future problems? And will continue to innovate in platform and continue to verticalize things and all that.
But I also think it's also about not limiting where you may go next, right? Because I think what we all saw was Zoho very uniquely isn't ever going to say only use Zoho, or we've got everything. Like, they're not like the snake oil salesman where they're like, we've got a platform and you can just lift and shift everything to us. Ta-da! That's not where we're headed here. I think, to your point of, if you want to solve a problem enterprises already know where and how, and smart CIOs already have that landscape of where they need to drop something in and how that needs to connect and impact the rest of the estate. And I think with Zoho, they're able to have that dreamer discussion of what I'd like in that future state in a very, very different way that is interestingly product-led. And for the experienced person to be telling you that you should be looking at a product-led thing instead of an experience-led thing, like that's a pretty big conversation, right? But I think that what we're looking at here and what I would say to a CEN member is very carefully assess if there is a problem that you want to fix quickly and then have the capacity to scale.
Yeah.
Because if you can look, if speed is important and speed tethered to cost is part of your immediate mandate, have a strategic conversation with Zoho. Do not have a free trial. Where can I start a demo? Don't have a commodity conversation with Zoho. And I think, honestly, for enterprise customers, if I'm being super honest about our enterprise folks, that's where they go wrong. They go to Zoho and they're like, I'd like to talk to you about your CRM. I'd like to talk to you about your widget thingy that goes there. I want to talk to you about payroll. I want to talk to you about Manage Engine. What do you mean Manage Engine actually connects to all this other stuff? So when they go in and talk to Zoho in the way that you talk to a lot of other vendors out there, you will likely have a bad experience because you're going to go into the grocery store and you're going to look for a cookie and you're going to get the generic cookie. But if you have a problem that you need to solve with speed, scale, and cost optimization, talk about the problem, guaranteed Zoho's gonna have a tool, and then you can go from there. But I also think there's a very real statement in that, you know what, Zoho might not be the right vendor for you. Because culturally, you might not be ready to do the things that both of you talked about.
No, of course.
Which is to be able to do that. Well, awesome. What else can we say? Zoho Day 2026, we're already ready for you. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this conversation. Chirag, Martin, thanks for spending some time with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Until next time, we'll see you later, guys.